Hello, fellow people! This is part 2 of the Badge and Burden mini arc, this time with 3 new teachers that we only know by name, and their classes that would help us give the characters more early interactions and characterization to see them slowly find ways to work together as a team. Also, this episode has a bunch of dialogue. Yay! I'll do my best. Turned on closed captions to know who's talking. Let's start now. I did my best to stay within the limits in design language of the show proper, to not just create some random OCs that don't fit in. One of them is pushed to the furthest limit of that, but for world building purposes, and is still in the bounds of the slight baseline changes established for the reboot and the over-the-top designs we have in the show. I mostly used Port and Shion as the endpoints of what teachers would look like in this universe and institution. Now enough vague speak, time to see them. Yes, so we know Professor Peach exists, she got mentioned twice, and then the book cited 2 more names, Anne Green and Harold Mulberry. Nothing on their appearance, but at least now we know what those 3 teachers actually teach, so we can use that and our names to try and create something interesting. Let's start with giving Professor Peach a face. Her full name is Thumbelina Peach, fairytale reference obvious, and she's teaching plant science, which, because I need somewhere to put faunus lore into, is gonna be changed to just your normal biology. Speaking of faunus lore, I don't know why, but I always imagined her as one in my head. But when it came to actually drawing her, I couldn't decide which faunus she would be. And I'm not about to just slap a pair of vague ears on her and call it done. I looked into her fairy tale, but that also didn't give any results that vibe with what I pictured her as. A bunch of bugs, a mouse, a mole, a swallow, but none of them really fit. So in the end I decided to just make her human instead of forcing something. She's short and pudgy with a warm inviting personality. She'd spend a lot of free time in a garden or on a farm that apparently exists on vacant grounds. Originally, I wanted her to be closer to grandma age, but now she's more in her late 40s. I gave her a hippie boho chic style outfit, and she probably made the clothes herself out of recycled fabric. As a fun note to her fairy tale, the embroidery on her skirt has a bunch of flowers and a swallow, and peach blossoms in her hair, of course. A lot about her vibe is inspired by my biology teacher in school. She had a whole section of her classroom filled with plants. I'll put in a picture if I remember to. She made presentations for every topic, so we wouldn't be stuck with boring dry workbooks, and then peppered those with actual life examples and stories showcasing what she was talking about. We had basically no budget, so she brought in a bunch of dry plants, minerals, all the stuff that she could showcase, so we would actually have something to work with from her personal collection. She insisted on field trips and organized them herself, and if we did good in class, we could watch movies on the TV she had there. That's the kind of teacher I see Professor Peach as, just, you know, with actual budget and opportunities to do stuff. I don't think she would be a huntress, probably just a normal biology teacher. But if she was, what do you think her weapon would be? Again, since we're going through professors quickly, I'll come back to each of their speed paints to finish them off during the next storytelling portion, don't worry. Next, we move into our new addition, Stealth and Security Professor Anne Green. And because I'm not familiar with her alleged delusion, we only have her name and job to work with. Since Professor Peach didn't turn out to be a faunus, I wanted to make Anne one instead, and that got me thinking on what kind of animal she could be. Her name very vaguely means something related to eagles, but I've created enough Aquilas already for my comic, so nope, not doing that again. Speaking of, you should read it, it's very cool. It's called Proxima Luminis, it's on Webtoon and Tapas, and it's about stars. There's a link in my channel bio. My friend said I should do my promotion for it. Next, I looked up stealthy animals. We already have Ilia for chameleon, and it would be hard to make a feline faunus without it being just ears and tail boring. I want to use minor characters as a chance to really show the other limit of what faunus could be, the reason why humans think they're weird and different. I don't want to change existing faunus too much and make them unrecognizable from their original show versions. That would be counterproductive to the point of my series, so using minor characters is a good way to showcase this world building detail. Which got me thinking of what kind of animal would be interesting to see, what would look different. We don't have any bugs yet, do we? No, we don't. Tyrion is an arachnid, and most of what I'm going to be changing about him will be usually covered with clothes. So that's the story how I made Anne Green a mantis. I remembered how orchid mantis masquerades itself as a flower, seems fitting enough. Her body was very fun to design, triangle-shaped face with sharp features, teeny tiny waist, and most notably of course she has funky legs and arms. She does have fingers. I moved them to the top of the arm so it would be more human functioning instead of where mantis actually has claws on tips of arms. She also has patterns on her arms, stomach and sides that could actually have some volume to them. Because it would be kinda hard to get in and out of clothes with those arms, she doesn't have sleeves. Her entire outfit is made for practicality first, very few accessories. Not to mention that those would be too much considering how busy her body alone is. Her only accessory is an earring. As a teacher, I think Anne would be a sharp and trial by fire kind of instructor. A lot of practical lessons with analysis after each one, where they can improve next time. She throws in a lot of unexpected tasks, saying that work in the field is unpredictable. They need to learn how to adapt on the fly now so they don't become a daredevil toothpick after graduation. She's been a huntress for a bit before becoming a teacher, and honestly, she still feels weird being called Professor Green. Either way, she knows the way the world works by experience and will now make sure all the children living in her class will know it well too. Anne will not give you even a barely passing grade if you don't put in actual effort, which means slackers like Arden would have their ass handed to them in her class unless they get their act together. Speaking of Corden and the like-minded individuals, they would be too intimidated to make any racist remarks about her being a faunus. They know she would break them like twigs. Maybe someone did once ask if the rumors about her eating an ex-boyfriend are true, getting a frustrated sigh from several students. She only smiled eerily, putting a claw to her face pretending to think, well, he did look delicious. Nobody asked stupid questions after that, and rumors spread with even more vigor. I have an idea for a lesson with her, so we'll get to it now, after which we'll see our last known professor. Both of the lessons will be the rest of this vague episode 3-4 event plan, after what we already discussed with Vice in part 1. Now, with the speed paints happening in the background, time to take a look at the class of Professor Anne Green. The students came to the classroom that morning expecting a normal lecture like they got with Port and Oobleck, or a normal practical lesson in the auditorium like they had with Peach and Kudwich. But instead they only find a note on the door, come to the Emerald Forest, and that's it. That left them all very confused and some kind of nervous about what will be waiting for them. Vice has already given up on the school being normal and structured like she expected. Atlas it is not, that's for sure. The students arrived to the edge of the forest, now anticipating something grand and impressive if it warranted coming all the way out here. Excited and confusing buzzing spreading through the crowd at seeing their teacher and a table next to her with several items on it. Some dreaded it becoming Initiation 2.0. For most, it's their first time seeing Professor Green in flesh, so there were also surprised gasps and whispers, realizing she's a mantis faunus. Average citizen would expect faunus to be like mammals with ears and tails and the like. That's the most common types after all. So seeing a bug and with such prominent traits, that's a new experience for most of them. Blake rolled her eyes at their ignorance. Unlike most, she has seen plenty of different faunas back on the menagerie, some being more animal than human even. But she has to keep her cover, so she feigns interest adjusting her glasses, just in case Professor Green clocks her as a fellow faunus. She knows it's very unlikely she'll get caught out. They all know the reasons why one might want to pass for a human, but it never hurts to be careful. But to be honest, Professor Green just seems completely uninterested, waiting for students to come closer with a look that implies she wants to be anywhere but here dealing with some kids. You can call me Anne. None of that Professor Green formalities, it feels weird. Vice bit down an offended gasp. Right, what did she expect from this crazy school, especially from that kind of teacher? Anne continued, not caring about confused whispers in the crowd. Each pick one thing on the table. You will use it during the lesson. If I see any of you fighting over something, you'll get extra homework. We're not in kindergarten. More confusion as students awkwardly started shuffling through the cloaks and robes and hats and the like. Finally, Wise couldn't take it anymore and raised her hand. I'm sorry, what will we be doing exactly? Ah, right, we'll be playing hide and seek. What? She just said they're not in a kindergarten and now they're gonna be playing a childish game instead of a lesson? Anne wasn't bothered at all by students now openly discussing the new information. Emphasis on this. All of you is gonna be hiding from me. Limits are a roped off area, it's big enough. I cleared out the grim from there, but if any show up, kill them, I'll give you a head start to rehide. Now shoo, I'm counting till 100. Let's see if any of you last more than 5 minutes. Those who get past 10 will get an A. And with that, everyone scattered. Some decided to stay with their teams like Juniper, some decided to split up and find their own place to hide like Ruby, after some discussion. Vice noting that the whole team going down at once would look bad, and Blake pointed out that she's better at stealth than most of them, so if anything, if they counted by collective performance, their team would look better this way. Vice thought it was all ridiculous, but she needs to go along with it, just like she's going along with Ruby as a team leader. Just another part of school experience. Good thing she asked what they'll be doing and managed to snatch a green cloak. She can hide somewhere in the bush and wait it out. Ruby decided to speed as fast as she can, to give herself the best advantage. Good thing that her semblance would help buy her some time to shake off Professor Anne. She hides in a tree observing the situation through the scope of crossing throws, making sure to not activate it and give away her position with mechanical sounds. You never know if someone might try to rat you out. Yen decided it would be easier to hide in one of the caves by the edge of the forest. She made sure to not cut off her exit just in case she needs to run and hide again. She figured the hide in the obvious place method would work greatly. Nobody expects someone to pick something that obvious. That's how she won against Ruby all the time when they were kids. And Blake just blended in with the shadows. It's easy for her to do, she's used to doing it when they were on spy missions with Elia. She's not as good as her, of course, but she picked up on a lot of tips. Our hypothetical audience won't see it, but she took off her bandana too, so she can hear the movements around her clearly. Juniper went to hide in another cave, bigger and darker one. Jean remembered the one where he and Pyrrha found the Death Stalker. Since its occupant has been killed, they can use its home for their needs. Ren stay and watch as the most stealthy of them, ready to alert them to be silent. Suddenly, everyone hears a loud bang of a gunshot near the edge of the forest. They're smart enough to realize it's the signal that the game has begun. But funnily enough, Anne doesn't use guns or weapons at all, she fights with her body now. The gunshot she did was from the weapon of her first caught victim, who she sends out of the forest to wait and read the workbook she left on the table, while she notes down their time on her scroll and moves into the next victim, moving silently and fluidly, seeing the students long before they see her. They think they're so clever that they can outsmart her. What they don't know is that she used to be a hired gun in the lowest levels of Mistral, long before she decided to use her skills for good as a huntress. Honestly, the only ones who know are Ospen and Glinda, and only because she was stalking Ospen once when they were both younger. Someone put a hit on him and she gladly took the job before getting her ass handed to her. That turned her to a new path. Was a bit awkward during job interview though. Each time Anne caught a student, she used their weapon to signal the catch. And with more and more gunshots, the more students got worried. She's catching them way too easily, she's way too close. And the fear makes them do dumb moves, forcing them to try and change position or give themselves away in other ways. She always has fun during this stage of the game. She catches Weiss soon enough, coming out of nowhere and refusing to explain how she found her, only saying she'll do a review after the game ends. Since Mercy doesn't have a gun exactly, Weiss is forced to signal her defeat with a flare of dust. She's so frustrated and embarrassed. She stomps through the woods back to the beginning area, seeing less people than she expected, even with counting gunshots. Huh, did Professor unintentionally fire multiple times to get them confused and scared? Weiss snatched the workbook from the table, defiantly sitting down as if she owns the place. She won't let anyone look down on her for getting caught so early, especially that imbecile Winchester. At least she wasn't one of the first like him. Well, she has time to read up on stealth tactics now to do better next time. And after a few more scattered gunshots, it got real quiet. And that made the ones left hiding very scared. Now they can tell where she is by how close the gunshot is to them and how many people are left. Yang gets anxious after a long wait. She doesn't like dark spaces and woods, it brings back bad memories, but she can't think about it now. Anne is in a cave, scanning it, carefully moving without the slightest sound. Yang's glad she hid behind some rocks just in case, now slowly backing towards the exit. And once she sees that Anne is deep enough and she's close enough to the opening, she starts sneaking out. Do you think I didn't hear your nervous little footsteps tromping all over the place? She's caught immediately. Weiss looks up from the book with her raised eyebrow. She wants to comment but knows Yang won't miss a chance to point out her embarrassing performance too. It's now been 6 minutes. Juniper caught next out of the ones we care about, despite Ren alerting them in advance to move deeper, and even using his semblance to make sure they don't give away their position by nervous breathing or loud heartbeat. They speculate how did she manage to find them in complete darkness. She said it's not night vision, she doesn't have that. Well, they tried and got pretty close to less than 10 minutes. Ruby actually saw Juniper get caught from her position and got nervous, deciding to speed to another hiding place further away. She's too close. But not a minute later, she got found in a tree hollow she squished herself into, with an amused smirk on Anne's face. 12 minutes hit. Anne returned to students with Blake in tow, the only one who lasted past 10. What we won't see is Anne finally noticing Blake hiding in shadows and congratulating her in the only A in class. She expected nothing less from a fellow hider in plain sight. Blake jumped down, giving her a kindred nod, and quickly put the bandana and glasses back on. Now the students started demanding answers. How did you find him so fast? Anne raised a claw, commanding silence, then started pointing at people one by one. Heavy breathing, you know why. Running, really. Close to bright, footsteps so loud, heavy breathing. She pointed at Weiss next. White hair stands out and leaves. Weiss turned pink. Of course her hair gave her away. She should have thought of that. Meanwhile, Anne continued to Yan and Ruby. Your footsteps too loud even when you're trying to sneak. You convenient trail of rose petals. And while Ruby facepalmed hard, Juniper got their verdict. They did great overall, but what gave them away was Jean's and Pierre's clinking armor from slightest movements they did while trying to readjust and get further in the cave. After finishing pointing out everyone, ending with Blake moving around from exhaustion of sitting in one place, Anne gave them a task of thinking how to improve next time. After this, the discussion for a while was this lesson. Spirits of some were dampened, but most got eager to do better now that they know what to expect. Weiss in particular decided to study the whole workbook out of sheer spite of going out so early. She will not accept a B- for participation. Meanwhile, some like Cardin got pissy, even while gathering for the next lesson, saying that this is stupid and rigged and why are they playing games with a crazy fondness. His remark got interrupted by a claw around his neck and a smirk next to his face. We are playing games, Mr. Winchester, because you children are not ready for anything bigger than this yet. The real world is not a game, and how do you expect to last a week in the field if you can't even notice me coming up behind you? She releases him completely unbothered. As you can see, a true huntsman must always be on guard, because, as Mr. Winchester helped me demonstrate, danger can appear at any moment. For the second lesson, they are tasked with seeking as teams, and their target on herself. She reassures them that she will stay in plain sight. Their task is to get close enough without her noticing to catch her, and after they can discuss how they'll try to hide as teams in future lessons, which is also a needed skill. Juniper are waiting for the signal to start seeking. Jean already put Pyrrha on a watch in the trees using the scope of her gun, while Ren will be the one doing the catching once they spot Professor Anne and cut off some of the escape routes with Nora and himself. But their plan doesn't go as planned. They did circle her, carefully creeping around her, but she hears something, turns to Jean's direction and bolts into the trees. Jean quickly commands Ren to follow and Pyrrha switch to catch her. Him, Nora and Ren will try to lure Anne to her so Pyrrha can drop down from the trees. That also doesn't go as planned. Anne does get lured into the right place, but she zooms right past it, and instead Pyrrha drops on top of Jean. He shakes it off and tells Ren to take charge for now. Pyrrha is apologizing profusely, and she notices that he's not healing the cuts on his face from the grass and branches. But she'll bring it up later, they have a professor to catch. Ruby decided to go action and traps way. Nothing in the books and rules of the game said they can't use their weapons and semblances. Inspired by the Never More Beheading team move and the last lesson's mistakes, Ruby came up with a plan. Blake tracked down Anne's path, predicting where she'd go next. Ruby laid out a trail of rose petals in the opposite direction from where they're taken, and on that path, Weiss made a trap with the gravity glyph holding down Gumballshroud's ribbon hiding under some leaves. The moment Anne stepped on that, Weiss let go, causing the ribbon to spring and catch Anne's legs for a moment, making her stumble, right into another gravity glyph to hold her in place long enough for Yan to jump out and grab her in a bear hug. Smart. Now let me go, I still need to give your classmates a chance. While they're going through the forest waiting for the game to end, Ruby let Blake take lead on deciding a good place for all of them to hide, and asked Weiss what tips from the workbooks they can use in this situation, since she practically memorized it in a week she's been grinding through it. Blake finally thinks of a place for all of them to hide, when time comes for it, awkwardly noting that Yang gave her the most trouble with it because of her size. Excuse me? I mean, you're the biggest out of us? I can't tell if you're calling me fat or talking about— No! Just that you're bulky because of muscle! Blake blushes, Ruby rolls her eyes because she's used to it, and Weiss is not amused. When time runs out and several more teams manage to successfully catch her, Anne gathers them for a performance review before they go for another round with a different task. She pauses thinking, then points out several people, including, among others, Yan, Jean, Pyrrha and Cardin. You're so bulky, that makes you noticeable. But there are ways to hide even with a bigger belt. Think what you can do next time. She points out Cardin specifically. You walk around like you own the place, not scared of anything. That makes you stomp. In the field, that would alert all the criminal area, and you'll become ribbons before you can take out your weapon. Then points at John. And you are quiet, but you're not confident at all. That makes you panic too quickly and gives you away. Work on it. Next time she expects just that, but for now they have to go to class on aura training, going through the fundamentals of what it is and the theories and its ties to the individual, and that makes Pyrrha once again think of what she noticed with Jean not using his. That evening, Jean is thinking of what he can do to improve. Occasional wins are great and all, but he sucks at most of his classes. He's already dreading going back home for the holidays with the grades he's getting. He didn't even notice Pyrrha come up next to him until she called him out, making him jump and her giggle. She sits next to him, awkwardly starting if he doesn't mind her asking, why doesn't he use his aura? Jean looks off, not surprised that she noticed by now. He mutters that he doesn't know how. He never learned and nobody taught him how to. Well, how about I do? Everyone must learn sometime, right? He hesitantly nods, and she unlocks his aura, mentioning that he's got a lot of it, with cuts from the morning healing immediately. She promises she'll keep it between them and reassures him that there's nothing embarrassing about it. Most citizens don't have their aura unlocked at all in their lives. The fact that he went through that whole crazy initiation they've had without unlocked aura is incredibly impressive. Jean appreciates the pep talk even if it's embarrassing. The first task of their next lesson is for less sneaky students to catch on, with their teammates having to help them achieve that from the sidelines with brainstorming. A collective project. And then she adds an extra curveball after thinking and staring again. Switch clothes with one of your teammates as much as you can. Just what would help you achieve the task better. You all have spares of your combat outfits, I assume. And again, team effort. Everyone contributes or else. Of course, Ruby decided Yen should go with Blake's clothes, but with her own dark shorts. Ruby suggests trying to hair in a bun, it's too noticeable. Then Weiss, after thinking, turns to Blake. Do you have any darker bandanas? She does, and she brings a black one, which they use to cover Yang's hair more. Weiss admits that she's been thinking of using this method for her own hair. As for Juniper, well, Nora insisted they just straight up switch. It's not interesting to wear doubles of the same outfit, and she really wants to try on Pyrrha's style. it surprisingly works. Nora happily bounces around Pyrrha, saying how cute she looks in pastels. Weiss looks over at Ren sitting on a rock. I'm surprised you went along with it. Well, the studio is rather comfortable. Ren also notes that the idea Team RWBY are going with seems smart, they can use it too. Pyrrha nods and pulls her hair up in a bun. She's kind of awkward without her armor, just in a fluffy skirt, even with shorts on. It's somehow both more and less than what she's usually wearing, and it really throws her off balance that she cultivated for years with hard work and constant training. Jean notices her shifting uncomfortably. If it makes you feel better, we can switch. What, you're in a skirt? Wouldn't be the first time, don't ask. No, it's okay. It's unusual, but nothing I can handle. That's great. At least that makes one of us. I know you'll do great. I kinda didn't come up with anything that could help me, but I did have an idea for you, though it's probably stupid. What is it? I would appreciate any suggestion. Your stance. Pardon? You always look like you're ready for battle. Well, except when we're in the dorms, but you know what I mean. I've seen my dad working like this around the house. Hard steps really loud when you're on the floor below, as if facing an opponent instead of a fridge. Oh, that is actually a good note. I haven't really thought about that. She thinks on it while they're waiting for others. She does feel like she needs to give off a certain image all the time, that's true. The mass perception and expectations, that's her opponent. Then is it really surprising that her steps are light only when she feels at home, in their dorm? The task starts. They scatter and wait for the signal to start hunting. Yang dwells on what she can do to pass. None of the advice her friends gave her after class really works for her either. Ruby suggested trying to move like Blake does, and they did try it out while waiting. It's still not right. She just can't make herself small. She remembers the conversation she had with Coco after class. Coco told her about their first lesson with Anne last year, and how she got forced into staring right into her fierce face all the time. No Grim can compare. Hiding all the time in dark spaces for her is scarier than a pack of alpha beowulfs. But that's the only way she managed to pass. Channeling that anger at feeling so scared into spite and desire to pass. Yang tries to remember a time she's been scared. When she was a kid, but she doesn't want to think about it now. Having to be quiet to not wake up Dad after him working multiple jobs in a row to provide for them. When she had to be quiet. Another one comes to mind, when she managed to be sneaky. A time at Signal when she was much younger. She's been looking for her friends who said they'd be waiting for her after class but ditched her again. She heard their voices in the classroom and decided to sneak up to scare them. And while at it, she heard what they were talking about. And that made her actually sneak, being quiet as a mouse to hear it clearer, make sure she heard it right. You think she'll actually show up? Well, duh, we're only friends. Why do you keep inviting her? She's so annoying. You think I want to? But Mr. Shaolun is more lenient to you in class if you're friends with her. Everyone knows that. Yang doesn't really remember anything after that, only burning rage and being suspended for breaking a classroom door in a couple of arms. She was never quiet again after that, sneaking in trying to fit in for someone's approval. She started shining bright so people would want to be with her instead of her clinging to them. That burning feeling of spite built her now too. This must be what Coco meant. Well, if she has to become a quiet little mouse to pass this stupid class, so be it. Only here and only for this reason, but not anywhere else, not anymore. She passes in minutes, managing to sneak up on Anne. Well, that was a lot, wasn't it? But we're still not done. I promise this one will be quicker. So now let's meet our weapon crafting and upkeep teacher, Professor Harold Mulberry. With a name like that, he just feels old. And his subject immediately makes me think of a blacksmith type of guy. Actually, when I was first thinking of how he might look like, I immediately thought of that one blacksmith guy Ranger encountered in Volume 4 that reforged John's armor. And I'm gonna be honest, it was very hard to not have Professor Mulberry have horns. There's just something about blacksmith characters with horns. Nah, instead, after a long and hard time thinking, he became a Vabirusa. He has two sets of tusks like one, but instead of one of those coming out of his nose bridge, they're on sides of his jaw. He's like an insanely in shape gruff grandpa. He will take no nonsense in class, only weapons. Each lesson he picks a random student and makes them explain how their weapon works and think how it can be improved. Because we are always changing and growing, and the weapon, as a reflection of its owner, must grow too. Guess who would literally live in this class if she could and has to be dragged out of here by the cape every single time? Imagine Ruby practically bouncing in her seat wanting to be called to the front again. Miss Rose, you already showed your weapon 2 times before. Yes, but I came up with new improvements and I really want to discuss them. She has to be told no, but later during the practice section of the class, where everyone tends to their weapons or helps their teammates, she does rant about all the things she wants to add to Crescent Rose to Professor Mulberry. He's the one who suggested the blade be able to rotate freely if needed, which he finally managed to implement at Atlas. So I don't know if it's common in other places or not, but here in schools, boys have a class where they, among other things, learn to quickly assemble and disassemble a rifle. I feel like Professor Mulberry would have something like that, saying that every huntsman needs to know their weapon inside and out, and be able to fix any malfunctions on the fly. Jean had a bit of a struggle there, mostly mental, because while Crossy Amorce isn't exactly that complicated, only shifting in and out, it's a family heirloom that went through the war, and he's afraid to damage it. Foreshadowing? Ren and Nora also were struggling, since they aren't the ones who made their weapons, those were commissioned for them by their huntsman friends. They know how they work, but they never really broken down before by themselves, and that with Ren already being hesitant to change anything about Stormflower, with the sentimental value its design has for him. Maybe he even showed the dagger it was based on to Professor. That's where the grandpa side of Professor Mulberry would come out, asking Jean if he wants to stay in the shadow of his family legacy forever, or if he wants to become his own huntsman. Asking Nora how is breaking open and learning about your weapon is different from learning about your own self. Asking Ren if he remained the same his whole life, or if he changed himself to uphold his parents' memory. So how's changing anything about Stormflower Heart when he already started using it instead of the little dagger? His class also has a big cooperation aspect, as different huntsmen often work together and need to be prepared to assist, thus they have to know how to work with different weapons. Because of those lessons, by the end of the month Ruby knows everything there is to know about the two teams' weapons, and is likely the one suggesting things for them to try out, like Blake using dust to affect her shadows, or Jean extending Crossy Amorce with a shield to turn it into a greatsword. She couldn't come up with anything from Merton Aster, partially because there isn't anything to add to it, and partially because she's still intimidated by Weiss and is worried suggesting something would make her angry again, especially since they're still awkward even after reconciling a bit. Honestly, Ruby tries not to be around Weiss too much in general because of it, more than she needs to anyway. She mostly sticks to Blake or Juniper, or Yen if she manages to catch her, which got a lot harder lately now that she got to know a bunch more people and is constantly hanging out with them instead. But that's a story for another time, as in next time, when we'll see Yellow Trailer and the repercussions of it on the team dynamics, continuing with Weiss's arc and exploring Yang's, with some familiar faces joining our side character roster. Tell me what you think of these new things. Can you tell I love Anne? Okay, I love all three of them, but Anne made me come up with a whole new interesting Westernful character dynamics. And since I took so much time with her lesson this time, she won't really appear aside from the mentions now unless needed. I used her enough for now. Peach will come up for the lore drop classes, and Mulberry will still have his lesson when I need them to appear. But that was a lot. Just in case it's not clear enough from my approach, if we ever see what those teachers actually look like and act like, I can always adjust and move these ones to the SE pile. I do love them, but that won't stop me from realizing they're not canon. Okay, I'm just continuing to yap. Tell me what you think of the new fellas, because I love them so much. And I'll see you on the other side after I take a long nap.